In our community, the Homeowners Association, HOA, serves as a governing body aimed at maintaining property values and ensuring a pleasant living environment for all residents. Ostensibly, their role is to uphold the aesthetic and functional aspects of our neighborhood through a set of regulations meticulously crafted to promote unity and harmony among homeowners. These rules encompass everything from lawn maintenance and exterior paint colors to the types of structures allowed on one's property. While many residents appreciate the assurance that comes with living in such an organized setting, there are times when an HOA's authority can overreach, leading to discord rather than harmony. HOA boards are often composed of local volunteers who may hold significant sway over community decisions. They have the power to enforce compliance through fines and other penalties, which can create an atmosphere of fear for those who might consider challenging their mandates. For some, this dynamic fosters a sense of camaraderie. For others, it breeds resentment, especially when individual rights come into conflict with collective governance. My experiences with the HOA had always been relatively uneventful, until that fateful day when their actions shifted from bureaucratic oversight to destructive overreach. As I navigated the rules and maintained my property according to their guidelines, I never anticipated that my home would become a target of their aggressive enforcement tactics. The stark realization that they could wield heavy machinery like an excavator without prior consent shattered my faith in the system designed to protect us. The HOA's authority, seemingly benign at first, soon revealed its darker side, one that could jeopardize not just homes, but livelihoods. This was merely the beginning of a confrontation that would pit me against an organization that had grown too powerful, igniting a determination within me to stand up for what was right. As the weeks passed, the initial peace began to unravel, revealing cracks in my relationship with the HOA. It started with a seemingly innocuous letter, informing me that my property was no longer in compliance with their standards due to a few minor changes I had made, adjustments that I believed enhanced my home's aesthetic appeal. I had added flower boxes to my windows and painted the front door a vibrant shade of blue, which I thought would add character and charm. Yet, the HOA viewed these modifications as violations of their strictly enforced regulations. Each notification from the HOA felt like a personal attack. They demanded immediate rectifications and threatened fines if I didn't comply within a specified timeframe. Frustration mounted as I found myself justifying my choices to an anonymous group of individuals who seemed more concerned about uniformity than community spirit. In an effort to foster dialogue, I attended the next HOA meeting, hoping to voice my concerns and perhaps find common ground. Instead, I was met with dismissive glances and condescending remarks, reinforcing my feelings of isolation. The tension escalated when they began citing other minor issues around my property: an untrimmed hedge here, a slightly uneven walkway there, each complaint more trivial than the last. It felt as though they were on a mission to exert control over every aspect of my life. The relentless pressure led me to question whether this organization had any genuine interest in promoting a healthy community, or if their motives were rooted in power dynamics. What once seemed like benign oversight was morphing into an oppressive regime that threatened not just my home but also my peace of mind. With each confrontation, I felt a growing determination. This would not be the end of my story against an organization that had forgotten its purpose. It was time to take a stand, not just for myself but for all those who felt stifled under the HOA's heavy hand. The day of the shocking incident began like any other, with the sun casting a warm glow across the neighborhood. I was in my garden, tending to my plants, when I heard the distant rumble of machinery. Curiosity piqued, I ventured closer to see what was happening. To my horror, I saw a large excavator positioned near the edge of the riverbank, operated by a crew hired by the HOA. They were digging and reshaping the landscape without any prior notice. Their actions seemed both reckless and alarming. Before I could fully comprehend what was unfolding, the operator swung the massive arm of the excavator, scooping up earth and gravel with an unsettling ease. As they worked, I felt an uneasy knot tighten in my stomach. The riverbank was being altered drastically, and with each scoop of dirt displaced, I recognized a looming threat to my property. Panic surged through me as I rushed to confront the crew, but they waved me off dismissively, insisting they were following HOA directives. Then it happened, a sudden shift beneath my feet. The ground trembled as if it were alive, and in that moment, I realized that my house was tilting dangerously toward the river. The excavator's relentless excavation had destabilized the soil surrounding my foundation. I watched in disbelief as my home seemed to edge closer to the water's edge, fear coursing through me like electricity. "Stop! You have to stop!" I shouted, desperate to reclaim control over my home. But amidst my frantic pleas, the crew continued their work, seemingly oblivious to the chaos they had initiated. The horrifying realization struck me: this wasn't just an accident. It was a culmination of negligence and disregard for community members like me. My heart raced as I understood that if this continued unchecked, I could lose everything I had worked so hard to build. This was no longer just a dispute. It was a fight for my very home. In the aftermath of the shocking incident, a wave of dread washed over me. I stood dumbfounded as I surveyed the damage, my heart racing while trying to process what had just occurred. The excavator's actions had not only left physical marks on the landscape but had also shaken the very foundation of my life. The front corner of my house was now perilously close to the river, a stark reminder that everything I held dear was hanging by a thread. Emotionally, I felt like a fragile glass ornament, at risk of shattering into pieces. The disbelief morphed into anger and helplessness. How could this have happened? The HOA, which I once viewed with an air of respect and caution, transformed into the antagonist in my life story. Memories of my home, family gatherings, celebrations, quiet moments in the backyard, seemed overshadowed by an impending threat that loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. As I inspected my property further, I noticed signs of earth movement. Cracked sidewalks and uneven surfaces underfoot were now evident reminders that stability was no longer guaranteed. Each step toward my house felt heavy with fear and uncertainty. Sleep eluded me as anxiety churned in my stomach. Visions of my home sliding irrevocably into the river plagued my mind. I could no longer view my living space as a sanctuary. It became a battleground against an unyielding organization whose disregard for individual homeowners was palpable. Friends tried to console me, but their sympathetic words felt hollow. No one could grasp the weight resting on my shoulders or comprehend how personal this violation felt. In that moment of despair, I realized that this wasn't just about property. It represented everything I believed in, the right to feel secure in one's own home. Determination ignited within me. I had to fight back and reclaim my sense of safety and stability before it slipped away entirely. In the midst of my turmoil, I reached out to my brother, a respected judge known for his integrity and dedication to justice. As soon as I explained the situation, his expression shifted from concern to determination. He had witnessed the detrimental effects of HOA overreach on many occasions in his career, but this incident struck a personal chord. Knowing the stakes, he immediately offered to help me navigate the legal landscape that lay ahead. We met soon after at his home, where he spread out legal documents and began outlining potential avenues for action against the HOA. His calm demeanor provided a reassuring contrast to the chaos swirling in my mind. He explained how the law could protect homeowners from such blatant disregard of property rights and began to strategize a case that could hold the HOA accountable for their reckless behavior. I felt an ember of hope ignite as he spoke. With his expertise, we could challenge the authority that had so wrongfully intruded upon my life. Together, we started gathering evidence, photographs of the excavation, witness statements from neighbors who had also expressed concerns about the HOA's aggressive tactics, and documentation of all communications with the association. My brother's meticulous approach gave me clarity amidst my anxiety. Each piece of evidence was a step toward reclaiming my home. As we worked side by side, I marveled at how our bond had deepened through this shared mission. My brother was not just a judge but a stalwart ally determined to ensure that justice prevailed. With his unwavering support and legal acumen, I felt bolstered and ready to confront the HOA head-on. This was no longer just about my property. It was about standing up for every homeowner who had felt powerless against an overreaching governance. Together, we would seek justice and demand accountability from those who had threatened not just my home, but my very sense of security. With a renewed sense of purpose, my brother and I set out to gather evidence that would build our case against the HOA. The first step involved meticulously documenting the state of my property. Armed with a camera, I took photographs of every angle of my house, focusing on the areas most affected by the excavator's reckless digging. I captured images of the cracked foundation, the soil erosion near the riverbank, and even the remnants of the landscape that had been altered without warning. Each click of the shutter felt like a step closer to reclaiming what was rightfully mine. Next, we began to compile all correspondence with the HOA, from their initial complaints about my home modifications to their dismissive responses regarding the excavation. This documentation illustrated not only their overreach but also their lack of accountability in maintaining a safe community environment. With my brother's guidance, I realized that this paperwork would be crucial in demonstrating how their actions directly led to my distress and potential loss. In addition to photographic evidence and documentation, we reached out to neighbors who had witnessed the excavation or faced similar issues with the HOA. Many were eager to offer support. They shared stories of their own conflicts with the association, highlighting a pattern of aggressive enforcement tactics. We collected their statements, recording their experiences and concerns about community safety and property rights. As we pieced together this puzzle, I felt empowered. My brother meticulously organized everything into a comprehensive file that outlined our case clearly and concisely. Each piece of evidence reinforced our determination. It wasn't just about proving my situation, it became about advocating for all residents who had been silenced by fear of retribution from an unchecked authority. Through this process, I discovered strength within myself that I hadn't recognized before. With every photograph taken and statement gathered, anticipation grew in me. This fight was not just necessary, it was just. We were ready to demand accountability from an organization that had blatantly disregarded its responsibilities. As word of the incident spread through our neighborhood, the reaction from my neighbors was a mix of concern, curiosity, and in some cases, apathy. Many were shocked to learn that an HOA would take such extreme measures without prior notice or consideration for the residents impacted. It was evident that this incident struck a nerve with others who had felt the tightening grip of the HOA's regulations, but had remained silent out of fear or uncertainty. Some neighbors approached me directly, expressing their outrage. "That could have been any of us," one neighbor said, her voice trembling with emotion. She recounted her own run-ins with the HOA over insignificant issues, such as the placement of outdoor furniture and minor landscaping choices. It was illuminating to see how broadly this feeling resonated. As more community members shared their stories, it became evident that I was not alone in my struggles. However, not everyone viewed the situation through a lens of support. A small faction within the neighborhood continued to advocate for the HOA's actions, arguing that rules were in place for a reason and that adhering to them ensured property values remained stable. Their voices grew louder at community meetings, insisting that I was overreacting and risking divisiveness among residents. "This is what happens when people don't follow guidelines," one particularly vocal neighbor declared at a gathering, casting me as the antagonist rather than a victim. These conflicting opinions laid bare the fissures within our community. The Discord provided an unexpected platform for dialogue about power dynamics and accountability. Despite facing resistance from those who seemed intent on upholding the status quo, I felt encouraged by the support I received from many others who recognized that my fight against the HOA was symbolic of a much larger issue affecting all homeowners. With each conversation, my resolve deepened. This was about more than just my home. It was about advocating for fair treatment and standing against unyielding authority. The community was waking up to the reality that change needed to happen, and I was determined to lead the charge. With the evidence gathered and community support solidifying, it was time to refine our legal strategy. My brother and I convened at his home, surrounded by stacks of documents and a whiteboard filled with notes and ideas. The atmosphere was charged with determination as we delved into the intricacies of the law that could work in our favor. "First, we need to establish that the HOA's actions constituted negligence," he began, his voice steady and authoritative. He laid out how their lack of communication and reckless excavation had not only endangered my property but also violated the HOA's own regulations regarding community safety and homeowner rights. This was a crucial point. Proving negligence would be essential for our case. Next, we discussed potential legal avenues. We could file a lawsuit for damages, he suggested, outlining how this could include not only physical repairs to my house but also compensation for emotional distress caused by their actions. The thought of pursuing legal action felt daunting, but my brother's confidence inspired me. He emphasized the importance of showing how this incident affected not just me but the community at large. We also brainstormed ways to strengthen our argument by incorporating testimonies from neighbors who had faced similar issues with the HOA. Their experiences can highlight a pattern of behavior that demonstrates a systemic issue within the association, he said, recognizing that drawing connections between individual cases would amplify our claims. As we mapped out our approach, I felt an exhilarating mix of anxiety and hope. My brother helped me understand legal terminology and court procedures, preparing me for what lay ahead. It was no longer just about seeking justice for myself. It became a mission to challenge an authority that had neglected its responsibility to homeowners. Every detail we discussed bolstered my resolve to take a stand. With my brother's guidance, I recognized that this fight transcended personal grievances. It represented a collective call for fairness and accountability in our community. Together, we were ready to face whatever challenges awaited us in court. The day had finally arrived to formally initiate our legal battle against the HOA. My brother and I gathered in his office, the air thick with a mixture of anticipation and determination. The first step in the process was to file the lawsuit, a significant milestone that felt both empowering and daunting. We carefully reviewed the complaint, ensuring it captured every detail of the HOA's negligence and the subsequent damage inflicted on my home. As we finalized the paperwork, I could sense the weight of what we were about to undertake. This was not just about me. It was about standing up for every homeowner in our community who had been silenced by fear of retribution. My brother filed the documents online while I stood by, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Upon submission, we received confirmation that our complaint had been officially lodged with the court, a pivotal moment in our fight for justice. In the days that followed, both sides began to prepare for what would likely be a lengthy legal journey. The HOA, eager to protect its image and authority, issued a public statement asserting that they were committed to resolving the issue amicably and maintaining the integrity of community standards. Their carefully worded message aimed to minimize the seriousness of my concerns, but it only fueled my resolve. I knew that their attempts at public relations would not overshadow the reality of their actions. Meanwhile, my brother and I took advantage of the growing support within the community. We organized a meeting at a local community center, inviting neighbors to discuss what was happening and share their own experiences with the HOA. Our gathering was met with an enthusiastic turnout, further solidifying our claim that this was a broader issue affecting many residents. As I spoke about my experience and outlined our lawsuit, I could see nods of agreement and determination among those present. It became clear that we were not alone in this fight. We had begun to mobilize a collective voice against an authority that had long gone unchecked. I felt a surge of hope. Together, we were embarking on a journey toward accountability and change that could resonate far beyond our immediate dispute. The day of the courtroom battle arrived, and I could feel the tension in the air as we entered the packed courthouse. Friends and neighbors filled the gallery, their expressions a mix of concern and solidarity. My brother, seated at the front with me, exuded a calm authority that steadied my nerves. He was not just my advocate but a beacon of hope in this daunting legal arena. As proceedings began, the judge entered, signaling for silence. The opposing legal team from the HOA was composed of sharp, polished attorneys, ready to defend an organization that had weathered scrutiny for years. Their demeanor was confident, almost dismissive, as they prepared to counter our claims. My brother opened our case by emphasizing the negligence displayed by the HOA and how their reckless actions endangered my home and well-being. He brought forth the evidence we had meticulously gathered, photographs of the damaged property, documented communication with the HOA, and statements from neighbors echoing their concerns about the excavation. As he spoke, you could feel the weight of our collective fight resonating throughout the room. One testimony came from a neighbor who had also suffered under the HOA's rigid enforcement. With shaking hands, she recounted her own struggles, highlighting a pattern of intimidation and fear within the community. Her voice broke as she described how her family had felt under siege, and I could see tears in her eyes as she looked towards me, united in our cause. The emotional intensity grew as I took to the stand. I recounted the moment I learned about the excavator's destructive work, detailing the anguish and helplessness that had followed. As I shared my feelings of being stripped of my sanctuary, my voice trembled but hardened with resolve. I needed to make them understand. This was not just about property. It was about community, safety, and dignity. The HOA's attorney attempted to undermine my testimony with pointed questions, trying to portray me as an overreactor unwilling to comply with regulations. But my brother deftly countered each argument, reminding everyone that adherence to rules should not come at the cost of personal safety. As the court day unfolded, I felt a surge of determination. This was more than a legal battle. It was a fight for justice. The emotional exchanges in that room reflected our shared experiences and hopes, igniting a fiery resolve within me. I realized we weren't just fighting against an organization. We were advocating for change that could reshape our community for generations to come. As the court hearings unfolded, the community's support for my brother and me grew stronger, transforming our individual fight into a collective movement. Neighbors who had once been silent began to rally behind us, attending court sessions en masse, their presence serving as a testament to the shared frustrations many felt with the HOA. The packed courtroom became a symbol of our unified stand against an organization that had stifled voices for too long. In the weeks leading up to the trial, social media erupted with posts and comments from concerned residents sharing their stories and advocating for change. Local platforms buzzed with discussions on the HOA's practices, with hashtags popping up to organize community awareness. The collective sentiment resonated throughout the neighborhood, encouraging more homeowners to confront the HOA's overreaching authority. This newfound dialogue not only amplified our cause but also fostered connections among residents who previously felt isolated in their experiences. Local gatherings became a hub for strategizing and galvanizing support. Organizing community meetings at parks and community centers allowed us to exchange information, distribute flyers, and provide updates on the ongoing legal battle. At these events, I saw expressions of hope replace the initial feelings of fear many residents had endured. More than just listening, they were becoming advocates in their own right, driven by the realization that together we could create significant change. As the next court date approached, we organized a Support the Homeowners rally outside the courthouse, where neighbors held signs emblazoned with slogans like, "Home is our right," and "Stand up against HOA tyranny." The outpouring of solidarity created an electric atmosphere. For the first time, it felt like we were not just fighting for my home, we were illuminating a path for all who had been rendered voiceless. This sense of community empowerment highlighted an essential truth: when individuals come together with a shared purpose, they can interrupt cycles of power and reclaim agency. With my neighbors by my side, we prepared not just to confront the HOA in court but to advocate for a future where homeowner voices would no longer be silenced. The day of the verdict arrived, and the atmosphere in the courthouse was thick with anticipation. Friends, neighbors, and supporters filled the gallery, their collective energy palpable as we awaited the judge's decision. My brother sat beside me, a calm anchor amidst the swirling anxiety of what was at stake. As the judge entered and took his seat, a hush fell over the room, amplifying the tension that had built over weeks of hearings. After what felt like an eternity, the judge began to deliver his ruling. He spoke clearly, outlining the evidence presented during the trial while emphasizing the HOA's failure to uphold its responsibilities toward community safety. My heart raced as he confirmed that the HOA's actions constituted negligence, acknowledging not only the physical damage to my property but also the emotional distress inflicted upon my family and other homeowners affected by similar overreach. Therefore, he concluded, I find in favor of the plaintiff. A wave of relief washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of emotion as applause erupted in the courtroom. The sense of victory was not just for me but for everyone who had rallied behind this cause, everyone who had felt powerless against authority. The ruling mandated that the HOA not only repair the damages to my home but also implement new practices to ensure better communication with residents moving forward. The decision carried implications that echoed beyond my case. It represented a shift in how the HOA would operate within our community. It was a moment of hope, a precedent that could inspire others to speak up against injustices they faced. In the days following the verdict, messages flooded in from neighbors expressing their gratitude and relief. Many felt emboldened to share their own stories and confront issues they had previously accepted as inevitable. The fight against the HOA had sparked a change in mindset within our community, igniting a renewed commitment to stand together against any future overreach. As my brother and I left the courthouse, I realized that this victory was only a starting point, a foundation upon which we could build a more equitable living environment for all homeowners. Together, we had not just won a legal battle, we had fostered a profound sense of community empowerment and hope for lasting change. Reflecting on the journey I undertook against the HOA, I realize how profoundly this experience shaped my understanding of justice, resilience, and the power of community. Initially, I felt isolated and overwhelmed by the enormity of the challenges ahead. The threat to my home was not just a personal issue, it exposed a systemic problem that many in our neighborhood had quietly tolerated for years. As I navigated the legal process with my brother, I witnessed firsthand the impact of collective action. The support from neighbors transformed my personal struggle into a communal fight, underscoring the strength found in solidarity. It became clear that when individuals unite for a common cause, when they share their stories and stand together, their voices amplify and their power grows. This realization was revolutionary. It taught me that change is often born from collective courage. Throughout the courtroom proceedings, I learned that standing up against injustice requires more than just determination. It demands vulnerability and honesty. Sharing my experiences in front of the judge and community members was daunting, yet it fostered connections with others who could relate to my struggles. Each testimony revealed a shared humanity that transcended mere legalities. It was about dignity, safety, and the right to be heard. The ruling in our favor felt like more than just a personal victory. It symbolized hope for others who had felt stifled by oppressive systems. It was a reminder that justice can prevail, especially when individuals refuse to be silenced. This journey instilled in me a deep sense of responsibility to advocate for those who may not have the same resources or support. As I move forward, I carry with me not just the lessons learned but also a commitment to continue championing community empowerment. The fight against injustice is ongoing, but now I know that together we can challenge even the most formidable opponents. Through resilience, unity, and unwavering support for one another, we can create lasting change that extends far beyond our individual battles. In conclusion, the journey I undertook to challenge the HOA not only transformed my life but also illuminated the power of community and the necessity of standing up against injustice. What began as a personal battle for my home evolved into a collective movement, uniting neighbors and empowering them to confront an authority that had long silenced their voices. Together, we navigated the complexities of the legal system, shared our stories, and discovered that resilience is often born from solidarity. The ruling in our favor was a pivotal moment, marking not just a victory for me but also a beacon of hope for others who had felt powerless. It underscored the importance of accountability, reminding us that organizations must prioritize the welfare of their community members. This experience taught me that when individuals come together with shared purpose, they can effect meaningful change. For anyone facing similar challenges with HOAs or other authoritative bodies, I urge you not to remain silent. Gather your evidence, share your experiences, and unite with your neighbors. There is strength in numbers, and together you can challenge even the most formidable opponents. Advocate for your rights and demand the respect you deserve. Your home is not just a physical structure but a sanctuary that should be protected. Let this journey serve as a reminder that justice is achievable when we refuse to be intimidated. Stand firm in your convictions, support one another, and create spaces where every voice matters. The fight for your rights may be daunting, But remember that you are not alone. The courage to stand up against injustice can inspire others to do the same, fostering a community where fairness prevails. Together, we can build a future where everyone feels safe and heard, a future where homeowners are empowered to reclaim their dignity and rights.